The movie begins with a big old cargo truck rolling into Colombia, and we see it as it clears the border. After the cop checks to make sure everything's straight with the truck, he waves it through. A little while later, the cargo truck pulls up to some sketchy spot, and the driver hops out and cracks open a wooden crate in the back. A dude named Chris climbs out of the crate. When he gets out, Chris is totally blindsided when the driver points a piece at him and demands cash. Chris tells him that he already took the dough they shook on before he got in, but the driver informs him that was just for the ride, and now he wants cash to let him live. Right then, Chris catches a second guy sneaking up behind him, and he's packing heat too. So he flings his bag hard at one of them and immediately starts throwing hands at the other one. He slices the guy's shoulder with the knife he's got, and then Chris clocks him with a haymaker that puts him on the floor. After that, he grabs the second dude and lays a wicked smackdown on him. He leaves both of them laid out on the asphalt, snags the car keys from them, and peels out with the truck to another spot. Somewhere else, we run into a seriously dangerous cat, and we find out his name is the Demon. We see him fixing up his mechanical arm so he can head on out. We go back to Chris and watch him keeping a lookout on a specific house until a car backs out of the driveway. The car's got the owner's daughter in it, and we find out that this is the home of a gang leader named Finn, who lives there with his daughter, Alice. Right then, Chris takes the truck and follows him. He keeps an eye on Alice until she gets to her school. Once Alice wraps up her school day, she heads back home. The second she walks in, Finn asks her how her day went, and then they kick back and laugh together. It's crystal clear they're super tight. That same night, we see the same dude with the missing hand hanging in a cafe way after hours. So, the cafe owner walks right up to him and tells him to bounce because she's shutting down. But the guy grabs her arm and forces her to take a seat across from him. She's totally wigging out on him, especially after he finishes putting the mechanical hand together on his arm. He slips a blade out of it and slices a piece of cake with the knife, then makes her open wide and eat it. The girl does what he says because she's so scared, but she catches a break when a police cruiser rolls up. A female patrol cop gets out and comes in to check on the cafe owner. The owner tells her that he was straight up threatening her. So, the cop tells the guy to get the hell out of there. The cafe owner is shocked that she just let him walk. When he takes off, she asks the cop why she didn't cuff him. The cop tells her that he didn't physically harm her, so she couldn't do anything to him. Then she locks up the shop with her and starts driving her home. But the second they get in the car, the demon pops up out of nowhere and wastes the cop. Then he gently tells the girl to chill out before he kills her too. What a sicko, right? The next day, we see two of Finn's guys driving Alice to school. Chris rolls up looking like a scrub and starts cleaning their car window. He tries to get them to crank the window down, but they won't budge. So he smashes the side mirror of the car. One of them jumps out looking for trouble, but Chris drops him with one move. The other guy tries to lock the car up before Chris gets to him, but Chris grabs him by the neck and knocks him out too. When Alice sees all this mayhem, she bolts from the car and runs into the street. Chris finishes off the two guys he was fighting and snags the car to chase her down and grab her. He manages to cut her off with the car, and then he runs after her and snatches her up. Her phone falls out of her hand before he shoves her in the trunk of the car. Afterward, Finn finds out everything that went down and rips into the two guys he sent to drive her. Then he grabs his stick and beats one of them until he collapses. Then he tells his crew to ice the other one. After that, he calls his main man, Joey, and tells him to hit up every crew they work with. He tells them to tear the whole country apart until they find his daughter, and whoever finds Alice gets a huge stack of cash. Alice is screaming her head off in the trunk of the car at this point, so Chris drives her to a secluded spot in the forest. He opens the trunk to check on her when he realizes she went quiet all of a sudden. But the second he opens it, Alice books it into the woods. He chases after her until she falls down. He tries to talk to her and shows her a photo of him with her mom and dad. He tells her that he used to be tight with her dad back in the day. He tells her that her mom asked him to take her far away from Finn, but she ain't buying it and asks him what his deal is with her mom. He tells her that it's a whole long story and that she just needs to trust him, but she's still terrified of him. So Chris hands her his heater and tells her if he pulls any dirt, she can blow him away with it. Alice grabs the gun and fires a shot at him just to make sure he's for real, but the bullet misses him. Alice gets in the car with him and holds the gun to his head to make him take her back home. But he tells her that it's a super long haul, and she doesn't need to hold the gun to his head the whole time because she'll wear herself out. And besides, he knows she ain't got the guts to shoot him anyway. But Alice informs him that she could pop him whenever she feels like it, and she's not scared of him. So Chris says, "Just chill, you can't do nothing." Alice shoots at him, but is shocked when she realizes the gun is empty. We find out here that he only gave her the gun with one round in it, and Alice stays scared stiff of him the whole way. After a bit, Chris realizes the car is running on empty, so he pulls into the closest gas station and tells her to keep it on the low and not make a peep. But the second he gets out of the car, Alice sees a bunch of guys standing around and runs straight to them, begging them to help her. Chris runs after her and tries to get her back in the car. She leaves them to throw down and calls her dad. One of the guys jumps Chris, but Chris clocks him and leaves him knocked out on the concrete. After that, all the guys charge him one after the other. He's tossing dudes around and mushing faces. He doesn't want to kill anyone, so he just hits them until they pass out. Then he runs to Alice and snatches her up just as her dad answers the phone. She tells him to haul ass and save her, but Finn doesn't get to hear anything else from her. Chris shoves her in the car, ties up her hands, and tells her to straighten up and fly right. Alice screams in his face and says, "Who the heck are you to boss me around?" He tells her that he's her father. Alice is stunned by what he says, but tells him that it's just a load of garbage. Then she informs him that she's starving, and when she's starving, she gets even more pissed off than she already is at him, and he needs to take her to get some food so she can figure out what's going on. So Chris drives them to the nearest greasy spoon. We notice the second they pull out that someone's tailing them. Next, we cut to Finn, who's ordering all his men to search the area she called from. Joey gets all the intel and runs to tell the demon. We figure out here that they had some old score to settle, and Joey is feeding the demon all of Finn's business to pay off that debt. We go back to Chris and see them setting down to eat. Chris tells Alice to wolf down her food quick, cause they gotta bounce. But she tells him that if he makes her leave before she finishes eating, she'll scream bloody murder and make a scene. Chris notices a chain around her neck. He tells her that he copped it for her mother, and when she grew up, she became her spitting image. Alice tells Chris that if he's telling the truth, and he is her dad, then where in the heck has he been all these years? Chris tells her that he was locked up in the pen. So she says, "You mean you're a criminal?" Chris says, "What? Finn tell you he was a dentist or something?" He tells her that her mother never gave a damn about Finn. Alice gets teary-eyed and says that she misses her so bad and doesn't get why she did what she did. We learn here that her mother offed herself, but Chris tells her that he's positive Finn is the one who did her in. She gets hot with him because she loves Finn to death. But then, a whole crew surrounds them all of a sudden. It turns out this is the dude who was following Chris, and he's a gang boss looking for the reward money. Chris rushes him and starts laying into everyone in the joint. Two of them snatch Alice and take off with her. The gang boss chases after them, and Chris is in a knockdown, drag-out fight with the rest of the crew. He's wrecking the whole place with them. When he walks outside, he sees they skedaddled with Alice and messed up the ride he was in. So, Chris runs back into the diner and grabs one of the gang members. He asks him where they took Alice, but the guy won't talk. So Chris grabs a deep fryer and keeps smashing him until he knocks his teeth out. Finally, the guy spills the tea before Chris finishes him off. At this point, Alice gets to the crew's hideout with them. They hand her over to the gang boss, snag their payment, and jet. The gang boss calms her down and tells her that he's going to give her back to Finn for a fat check. He lets her talk to her dad to confirm she's with him. Alice calls him, kinda unsure, and asks him if he had a hand in her mom's death. He says, "No way. Why would you even ask that?" She tells him the guy who kidnapped her said he was her dad. Finn drops the phone and starts demolishing everything in sight. The gang boss notices the demon just showed up at his hideout and has taken out all his men. He thinks he's here to snatch Alice, so he stashes her away. He grabs his weapon to try and stop him, but the demon is killing every single person in his path, doesn't care if it's a guy or a girl, and smashes any weapon that comes his way. Alice sneaks out of her hiding spot and grabs a vase. The second the gang boss walks in, she clocks him over the head with it, and he's lights out. Then she's shocked when she sees the demon has iced everyone in the place. She grabs the gang boss's gun and starts blasting at him, but he spots her and runs toward her. But before he can get to her, Chris pops up in his face, and the two of them jump into a savage brawl. Chris realizes the demon is crazy strong and way bigger than him, but we see that Chris's skills are insane, and he lands multiple hits on him. But all of a sudden, the demon smacks him in the face and tries to end him. But Alice shows up right then and screams at him to stop. The demon walks toward her, and Chris yells at her to run. She takes off running until she hits a brick wall. She's just standing there, and the demon walks up to her to finish her off. But Chris sprints after him and grabs him, and they both fall from the top of the building. Right then, we see the gang boss wake up and unleash his machine gun on both of them. Chris uses that moment and jumps through the glass to get out of the place. He waits for the demon to run out of bullets with the gang boss. Then he walks up and kills him. He walks out to get Chris and finish him, but a car suddenly slams into him, sending him flying. It turns out Alice is driving the car. Chris grabs her and gets them both out of there before the demon gets back up. Next, we see the two of them walking through a flea market. He tells her to go grab some different clothes because everyone will recognize her, and everyone's hunting them down. Alice changes her clothes and asks Chris to spill the beans on everything. Chris tells her that her mom was his wife before Finn betrayed him, got him locked up, and stole her from him. Finally, when she visited him in jail, he found out he'd taken his daughter too. But she was scared stiff of him, and to make sure Alice was safe, she asked him to take her away from Finn as soon as he got out of the pen. Chris then tells her that he, her mom, and Finn were once a crew that ripped off banks. But the day he found out his wife was pregnant, he decided that their next job would be their final one, and they'd all retire. And they actually pulled it off. But then Finn planted evidence to make it look like Chris stole the cash, and he did 15 years in prison because of it. Finn took the cash, his wife, and his daughter. We find out that Chris never squealed because if all three of them went to the slammer, there'd be no one left to raise her. Alice hears everything he says, but in the end, she's still not sold and refuses to believe a single word. At this time, we see the demon at his place, and we learn he's still breathing. We watch him stitching up the gash on his head. After he leaves, he sees a guy on the road and tells him to hand over his wheels nicely. But the guy gives him the finger and jumps out of the car to show him who's boss. But he didn't know that was the dumbest move of his life, because the demon rushes him, slices his ear off, then hits him and leaves him sprawled on the ground. He takes the car and drives off. We go back to Alice and see her hanging out with Chris. A certain jam comes on, and she starts singing along to it. Chris tells her that that's the track her mom played at their wedding. He then tells her that the chain she's wearing is made of diamond, and he bought it for her mom. He tells her that diamonds are crazy tough and can break anything. He got it for her mom because she was a beast too, and nothing could break her. That's why he wants to see her be tough like her mother. Alice gets all emotional over what he says. Meanwhile, Finn is seeing everything that's going down on the security cameras. When he sees the demon on the cameras, he realizes he wants to put his daughter in the ground. Right then, he knows he's in deep water. That same night, Chris and Alice go looking for a new ride to bail in. When they spot one, he manages to pop it open, and they both get in. Alice notices that he drew a route that leads to the airport. She tells him that she doesn't want to leave her dad, her school, and her whole life for him. She says, "Even if Finn locked you up, he raised me right." Chris gets heated and tells her that Finn is the one who took out her mom, but she informs him that there's no evidence of what he's saying. Chris tells Alice that her mom used to visit him in jail, and in the same month she told him she was going to grab their daughter and run from Finn. She died at the same time. And that's definitely not just a fluke or a suicide like he claims. Chris calms her down and tells her that he's going to take her to live with her aunt. She gets bummed because he's not thinking about making up for all the time she spent without him. But all of a sudden, the car owner shows up. Chris gets out of the car to handle the dude. Alice takes advantage of the situation, jacks the car, and drives off. Then Chris sees another car coming and tries to flag it down. But he's shocked when he realizes the demon is in it, and he sees him gunning after Alice's car. Alice gets out of the car by a payphone and tries to hit up Finn. But all of a sudden, the demon is right in her grill. She's terrified and runs into the street. She keeps banging on people's doors to get someone to save her, but no one opens up for her, unfortunately. She keeps running, then ducks and hides. She tries to wallop the demon with a metal pipe, but he knocks it out of her hand. He pulls an apple out of his pocket and tells her to take a bite. Alice takes a terrified bite and then spits it right in his face and takes off running. She hears Chris yelling her name and runs to him, but the demon shows up right then and gets into a massive gunfight with Chris. Alice is stuck in the middle. The demon manages to get to her and threatens to murder her. He tells Chris to drop his weapon. Chris does everything he says so he doesn't mess with her. The demon grabs Alice and ties her to a car. Then he goes back and ties up Chris to finish him off. He keeps slugging him, but Chris keeps standing up. The demon asks him who he is and keeps hitting him. And Chris doesn't say squat and curses him out. Alice tells him that he's her father. The demon is shocked when he finds out she's not Finn's kid. He punches Chris in the face until he passes out again. The next day, Chris wakes up hanging by his neck, supported by a car tire. He sees Finn right in his face, and he's about to end him. But Chris tells him that he needs him to get Alice back. But Finn says, "Nah, I don't need you," and shoves the tire away. And Chris starts gagging. But at the very last second, Finn tells his men to cut him down. The second he stands up, he punches Finn for killing his wife. So his men throw him on the ground and take him with them in the car to track down Alice. The demon calls him right then and tells him the meetup spot so he can get his due and hand over his daughter. Then he tells him to thank Joey for hooking him up big time. Finn figures out that Joey's the snake who's been giving him up. The second he hangs up, he shoots Joey in the back and kills him. Chris says, "Figures, you're always a rat." Then he asks him, "So who in the hell is the demon?" He tells him that he once hired him to do a job, but he got a little too crazy with it, so he decided to take him out. After they caught him, he put guards on him so he could kill him himself. But when he got there, he found all the guards iced and the demon had escaped after chopping off the hand that was cuffed. Since then, he's been searching for him and finally found him. After that, the two of them get to the demon's spot. But Finn leaves him in the car and tells him that the demon doesn't know he's here. He wants him to sneak in behind him without anyone seeing him, just like they used to run things. The second they walk in, Chris actually goes and creeps around the back. Right then, Finn walks up to the demon and finds out he killed all the guys who came with him. Then he sees him tying his daughter's hands to a conveyor belt. He tells him to save her and chop off her hands before she reaches the end of the belt. Finn sprints over right then to see what's at the end of the belt. He sees a metal grinder at the end and tries to stop it and shut it down any way he can. But the machine chews up anything that touches it. He's terrified for his daughter and runs back to her. At this time, the demon spots Chris in the area and sprints after him to finish him off. A massive chase breaks out between the two of them, and they get into a vicious scrap for the second time. Chris fights back against the demon and lands multiple hits to save his daughter. He asks him why he's trying to get revenge on her, since she's just a kid. He tells him that she's a big deal to Finn. He tells him that Finn paid him to kill his wife, and he got off on it and tortured her for a while. So he decided to get back at Finn for what he did, and he lost his hand doing it. That's why he's going to take his daughter's hand or her life. At this point, Finn decides to do what the demon said and tries to cut off Alice's hand. But he can't go through with it the second he hears her scream when the saw grazes her hand. He tries to look for another solution. At this time, Chris feels like he's screwed fighting the demon because he literally won't die. He tries to get away from him to reach Alice and save her, but he keeps following him and gets into another fight with him. Chris flips him away and runs to his daughter. He tries to stop the machine too, but the demon runs after him and stabs him with the knife in his arm. He keeps sinking it into his stomach until he drops to the floor. Then he rushes Finn and tells him to fess up to Alice about everything he did, and he'll tell him how to stop the belt. Finn tells her right then that he paid the demon to kill her mom because he was scared she'd take her away from him. Alice falls apart even more and is terrified by what's going on. The demon tells them at this time that the machine's control panel is on the ground floor. He tells them that it'll take forever to get there. Alice breaks down at this point, but Chris reminds her about the diamond. She rips the necklace off her neck and throws it into the machine, and the machine actually seizes up and finally stops. But the demon rushes Alice and tries to kill her, but Chris gets back up and tries to stop him. Finn rushes him all of a sudden, and the two of them fall from a long drop. Alice is shocked when she sees both of them are dead. She runs to Chris and sees him bleeding out and fading away. She breaks down and begs him not to leave her all alone. She tells him that she doesn't have anyone else now. But Chris goes silent all of a sudden, and she bursts into tears. After all this went down, we see Alice visiting a grave, but we find out later that it's her mom's grave. We see Chris right next to her, and he tells her that her mom would be so proud of her if she were alive. Alice hugs him for the first time and calls him Dad. We then learn that the demon's body next to Finn's disappeared into thin air. It looks like he might actually be a demon and not just a nickname. Or maybe we're getting a sequel to the movie, and the movie ends right there. If you like this movie recap, don't forget to like and share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss any of our recaps.